What's up, everybody? This is Squawk from LATIDO.com, and it's time for another edition of Hard and Heavy. This year is going to be 1972. Now, 72 is on kind of an odd year. You can't really say there was, heavy metal existed yet. Proto metal, perhaps, but the term heavy metal really wasn't being thrown around a lot often yet. Really didn't start getting thrown around more till like 74 and 75, and then it was, huge by the time it was like, 77, 78, 79. But 72 definitely had some heavy bands, definitely had the beginnings of heavy metal. Really, you can take it back to the late 60s and, bands like Cream and stuff, those proto metal bands, Iron Butterfly, to really look for the roots of heavy metal. But 72 is where we're at, so 72 is what we're going to show. I'm going to start off with a couple of CDs before I get into the vinyl. This first one I'm going to show, I would have swore I had it on vinyl. I didn't. So, what we got here is ZZ Top, Rio Grande Mud, which is playing in the background, hopefully light enough so that I don't get a copyright ding. But, yeah, just, a heavy boogie rock album. I don't know, people say Southern rock, I don't know, I don't really hear the Southern rock thing, I just hear, Texas boogie, lots of blues by the Texas Trio, heavy guitar tone, not metal, just hard rock. Solid album. Only real big hit on this album was probably Just Got Paid. Definitely, if you pick this one up, pick up the vinyl rather than one of the CD versions where they've remixed it and messed the drums all up. Original vinyl pressings is best. And then original glam rocker T-Rex, Mark Bolan, and this is the Slider. Big song on here, Metal Guru, classic song. This album is a precursor to the whole 1980s glam metal movement. Absolutely fantastic album. One of those I will pick up on vinyl again eventually. In the meantime, I have it on CD. This is a particular version. It's actually a 2 CD version, and it has a bonus that's full of like alternative versions and demo versions, which is really kind of cool. So, next up in our 1972, this one's more hard and heavy by association than anything else. This album's really not that heavy, but NAZARETH, Exercises, and pretty folky, acoustic-y album for NAZARETH. Nowhere near as heavy, as stuff that would come in the future, Hair of the Dog, Razum and Naz, that kind of stuff, No Mean City. This is definitely a lighter album for them. Still, I'm including it by association just because it's NAZARETH, and NAZARETH are one of the heavy 70s bands that I love, and I actually do like this album. But yeah, it's not a very heavy album. If you're looking for hard and heavy, it's probably not here. Still a good album. Like I said, very folksy sounding compared to the rest of their catalog. This next one by Captain Beyond. Got the little hologram image on there. And this band features ex-Deep Purple vocalist from Mach 1 era Deep Purple, Rod Evans. And this is, a fairly rockin', fairly heavy record, especially for 1972. Doesn't sound like the early Deep Purple stuff, which was kind of poppy, late 60s, early 70s pop. This is definitely a hard rock album. Rod Evans sounds great on vocals, so yeah, definitely worth picking up if you can find a copy, especially if you can find a copy with the original hologram image on the front of it. Captain Beyond. Again, another one I'm going to say, guilty by association. A hard and heavy band from the 70s, but this album, not very heavy. But Thin Lizzy. This is Shades of a Blue Orphanage. Of course, this is when Thin Lizzy were still a power trio, influenced by, likes of Jimi Hendrix and Cream and all those power trios back then. Still had a lot of Irish folk in their sound. Definitely wouldn't call this a hard rock record at all. There's really nothing on here that I would really say is hard rock. Just a good rock and roll record with, like I said, some of that Irish folk roots. You can hear Cream, you can hear Jimi Hendrix and that kind of power trio stuff in here. Precursor to what would come later when they would go to the twin guitar sound. But then there was another band from 72 who actually came before Thin Lizzy and kind of had that twin guitar sound that would become the staple for heavy metal. And this is a classic album by Wishbone Ash called Argus. This is definitely belongs in the Hall of Heavy Metal Fame. Regardless of how heavy this record is, the fact that it's just it brought that dual guitar sound, those dual guitar harmonies that would become popular with, you know, Thin Lizzy, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all those bands would just bring that sound alive in the 70s and 80s. And but really, Wishbone Ash were one of the first to really perfect that sound, and Argus is arguably one of their best albums, definitely one of my favorite albums from them. Didn't really have any hit singles on it or songs, but I never really listened for singles anyhow. I'm more listening to albums, so. Alright, this next one, I don't have an original pressing of it, but 1972, Michael Schenker with the Scorpions and Lonesome Crow. And this is actually a 1980s picture disc reissue with new artwork on it by Rodney Matthews. I've always loved the cover art on this one. The original cover is okay too, but I just think this cover is fantastic. Really love Rodney Matthews' artwork. He also did stuff for Nazareth. He did the No Mean City cover. He did Asia, Magnum. What else? Diamond Head. He's done so many classic album covers. But yeah, this is one of them. So, Scorpions, Lonesome Crow. Like I said, not a heavy record. Another one that's really guilty by association. There's a band who would sway into that heavier sound with follow-up albums. This one here definitely still has that kind of space rock sound, like early UFO. I don't know, German sound. It's I don't know. If any song on here I'd say was heavy, perhaps some of the guitar work on the title track "Lonesome Crow," which is like a 13 or 14-minute epic. But again, by today's standards, not heavy metal at all. By 72 standards, this was the beginnings of heavy metal. All right. Up next, Blood Rock Live. This a classic record by a classic band. This is a gatefold promo copy that I have, tons of photos. Captures Blood Rock Live. Actually, it says on the front, Chicago Amphitheater. The version of DOA on here, fantastic. One of the darkest songs ever written, just about, you know, death. Fantastic song, fantastic album. Really like the live version. That's why it belongs in this list of, you know, top 15 or 20 albums of 1972. Blood Rock Live. Next up, again, probably more guilty by association than anything else. Elf. This is the self-titled album from Elf. This is a 2013 or 14 limited edition repress on picture disc. But of course, Elf featured none other than Ron James Dio, who at the time was known as Ronnie. Let's see, Ron James Dio was the name he took. His original name when he was actually with this band was, let's see if I can remember it, Ronald Padovana. That's it, Ronald Padovana. Also on this album, I believe, was guitarist. Let's see if I can remember his name from the Rods. Feinstein. Yeah. Brain fart. Feinstein is Ron James Dio's cousin, and he was the original guitar player for Elf, and I believe he played on this album. I should have checked that before I started the video, but I didn't. So anyhow, classic album by Elf. You know, this is one of the albums that gave Ronnie James Dio a name in hard rock and heavy metal. This album was actually produced by two of the members of Deep Purple. Let's see if I can remember what their names are. I know it was Roger Glover. I think it was Roger Glover and Ian Pace who produced this album. So, 1972, the self-titled album from Elf, the first hard rock album released from Ronnie James Dio. Now we're starting to get into some real metal. This is some first wave of British heavy metal. Usually only include one album by you know, any particular band, even if they've released more than one in the year, but couldn't separate these two albums, URIAH, HEEP, Demons and Wizards, and The Magician's Birthday. Both classic albums. They go hand in hand. Really awesome artwork on these covers. Both of them are gatefolds. Both of them deserve to be seen, which I'm going to show them. Heavy guitars, heavy, I won't say keyboards, but it's not keyboards, it's organs. You know, it's got that heavy, heavy 70s organ sound. Just a great record. Both of them. Demons and Wizards. Can't even pick out a favorite song. It's just solid from beginning to end. Same thing with Magician's Birthday. Solid from beginning to end. Although this one did have a fairly large hit on it Actually, I'm wrong. It was this one I think that had the big hit on it. Let's double check myself here. Yes, this had a huge hit on it in Easy Livin', which was a Hensley. Gosh, I'm having a hard time with names tonight. Ken Hensley, that's his name. This is a Ken Hensley composition. Blackfoot. When Ken Hensley joined Blackfoot many years later, they would play that song live during their set. And then, of course, like I said, this is the Mitch's birthday gatefold. Classic 1972 album. Either one of them you can't go wrong with. Love the artwork on both of them. I love the artwork almost as much as I love the music on these two HEEP albums. So keeping it going. So this video is not an hour long. The very first Blue Oyster Cult, New York City heavy metal at its finest. 1972. These guys were pioneers in heavy metal. Do we doubt they were? I hear people would argue they were never a heavy metal band, not a heavy metal band. I beg to differ. This was heavy metal in 1972. This is what became known as heavy metal throughout the 70s. There's actually a release in Japan that has Aerosmith on one side and Blue Oyster Cult on the other that was released called New York City's Heavy Metal Sound. Was released in 74. So, like I said, by 74, heavy metal was becoming a very common term to describe this style of music, and Blue Oyster Cult were one of the leaders in that sound. Again, awesome cover art. Always thought this was just a cool cover. Even though it's just black and white, that's what makes it so cool. The City's on Fire. The City's on Flame with Rock and Roll. Workshop of Telescopes. Classic tracks off this one. Can't go wrong. Blue Oyster Cult debut. A little space rock here. Precursor to Motorhead and Lemmy with Hawkwind. DOREMI FOSOL LATIDO. DOREMI FOSOL LATIDO. Hawkwind records are just fun. Heavy metal? No. Space rock? Heck yeah. But you got songs like The Watcher on here, which was an Ian Kilmister, Lemmy Kilmister composition, which later would become a Motorhead staple. So again, the beginnings of heavy metal right here, for sure. Hawkwind, DOREMI FOSOL LATIDO. All right, getting to the last four. So this is our top four heavy 70s for 1972. Slade, Alive. Really wanted to include Slade in here, but I do not own that yet. I kind of hoped to own it by the time I did this 1972 video. It just didn't happen. So instead, we're going to be showing Slade Alive, which is a great album regardless. Gatefold. Always thought this inner sleeve picture in here was rather amusing. There are versions, single sleeve, non-gatefold versions that feature this as the front cover art too. I actually like it better than the cover. Cover's not that great, but the inside's awesome. Slade Alive. This is one of those albums you put on to annoy your parents. Lots of screaming guitars, heavy guitars, screaming crowd. Screaming Slade Alive. Alive. This is I believe a Polydor release, and yes it is. Yeah, classic Slade, another one of these bands that's a precursor to what became popular in the 80s with that kind of glam rock, Quiet Riot made a living off covering Slade, so there you have it. Alright, so we're getting to the last three, top three, probably three of the heavier albums that come out in the 70s. This is Alice Cooper, School's Out. Of course, everybody knows the title track on here. It's an FM radio staple. You'll hear it over and time again, especially around the time that School gets out. Brilliant Alice Cooper, the band release. But it's not the only song on here. This is a solid record from beginning to end. Always really enjoyed the... I can see if I can get this thing out of this Blake sleeve. Unfortunately, my copy does not have the little panties that came with the original, which is unfortunate, but here's the... just take the sleeve out of here so you can see it. It's kind of in a desk. And then the desk opens up and you can see the picture of the band and all the School stuff inside of it and all the graffiti on the front carved into the desk. Classic Alice Cooper record on the Warner Brothers label and on the green Warner Brothers label at that. And like I said, there's other songs on here besides, you know, just School's Out. I've actually, again, I'm not a big hits person. I prefer the full album of songs. This one definitely has that. School's Out, Gutter Cats versus the Jets, a song I played over and over and over again, much to the annoyance of my parents when I was growing up. You know, I'm not going to say this album is the best album that the Alice Cooper Band put out, but it is a very good album that they put out. I'd say Billion Dollar Babies and Killer probably topped this record, but great record nonetheless. Definitely worthy inclusion in our top 5 for 1972. Alice Cooper not only was, you know, not only a big influence on the sound of heavy metal as it went on in the 70s and into the 80s, but on the showmanship as well. I mean, even a band like Kiss, who was huge in the 70s, took a big, you know, influence from Alice Cooper and his showmanship. All right, top 2. These are definitely 2 of the heaviest albums in the 70s. It was hard to pick number 1 and number 2, so we're just going to call it a tie for top. Black Sabbath Volume 4. I mean, it doesn't get any heavier than this in 72, for sure. Wheels of Confusion, Supernaut, Snowblind, Canacopia, Under the Sun. There's not a bad song on this record from front to back. It's just classic Sabbath. This happens to be a US pressing, and it has the gatefold with the little booklet on the inside. See if I can show the booklet without too much glare. It's Ozzy and Geezer Butler. And then there's a shot of the band live on stage. And then you got the riff master, Tony Iommi, over here. And yeah, just a great record. I don't know, there's nothing bad I can say about this album. You know, it's just one of those albums that anybody who grew up in the 70s or 80s listening to heavy metal, if this wasn't on your turntable, then you probably weren't into heavy metal. It's the way it is. So, yeah, number 2, or tied for number 1, Black Sabbath, Volume 4. And our number 1, or our tie for number 1, Deep Purple, Machine Head. I love In Rock. I love Mach 2, Deep Purple. Really love anything that Ian Gillan has put out. But this album is an all-time classic. Always loved the cover art. To this day, it is a gatefold. On top of having one of the band's biggest hits, of course, with the Smoke on the Water, also includes huge hits like Space Truckin', Highway Star. Tight sleeve. Here's the gatefold and the insert. There's the gatefold. And then the back cover, and then here's the insert. And of course, I also had songs like, you know, Lazy and the lyric insert. Like I said, not a bad song on here. So tied for number 1, you got Mach 2 era Deep Purple with Sheethead, and Black Sabbath Volume 4. Oh, I just realized I forgot to mention Bill Ward. Got distracted, a little ADD going on there. Yep, got that going on. So, and the riff master, Tony Iommi. So there you have it. Hard and Heavy, 1972. Some of my top 15, I didn't actually count them this time, to 20 favorites of that year. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. Argue, disagree, you think none of this stuff belongs in a list called Hard and Heavy? Let me know. We'll talk about it. Up next, I'm actually going to be recording a video with my good friend Randy Michaud Trog for 1980. So we're going to start the 1980s pretty soon. Still have to get 1970 and 71 done. In the meantime, I'm also going to start doing 1980 videos. So look forward to that next. Hard and Heavy, 1980. So that's it for this edition of Hard and Heavy 70s. God bless and stay strong.